So the Rural Community Pollinator Grants are being solely provided by the Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs. The grants are being delivered through the Live Here, Love Here collaborative partnership, and that's through 10 local councils and the Northern Ireland Housing Executive. The grants are available across all council areas. As mentioned, the grants opened last week and they close at 12 noon on Monday, the 11th of October. The grants sit with Live Here, Love Here as they follow our vision, as we want to see a world where people and nature thrive, and also as part of Keep Northern Ireland Beautiful through our biodiversity recovery strategic theme, again involving the wider community. So the grants are really about connecting people to places. So the Rural Community Pollinator Grant objectives are as follows. The grants will enhance the environmental management and quality of a local area by planting a variety of plants for pollinators. These can be native trees, hedging, or indeed fruit trees, fruit bushes, or wildflowers. They will benefit the wider community and the environment. They will increase community access to biodiversity-rich sites, create a positive legacy within the community, increase civic pride through a programme of community engagement, improve the health and well-being of communities and biodiversity while helping to improve and/or maintain community spaces, and increase the biodiversity value of an area by reintroducing native species. Projects must meet at least 3 of these objectives to be eligible. So what is a rural community pollinator garden? It's a space owned, managed or leased by a community group, school or non-government organisation. The space that you are applying for must have an agreement, and it can be an informal agreement that you have the right to use that space. For a school, that agreement must be in position for 5 years. And for other projects, we would like to see that you have an agreement for at least the next 3 years to be eligible for funding. It's a site allocated within a postcode with fewer than 5,000 residents, a community space managed to support biodiversity with access for people to enjoy and visit, and a space with multiple habitats and feeding stations providing a pit stop for wildlife and humans. So the community pollinator grants will support organisations and groups to increase the biodiversity value of an area by planting for pollinators, transform unused spaces into valued community spaces, adding habitats and greening up grey spaces. Create or refurbish existing community gardens, outdoor classrooms or school wildlife gardens. Improve access to green spaces. Improve the quality of the local environment by changing behaviour to reduce the incidence of littering and dogfouling. So who can apply for the grants? Youth, community and volunteer groups, and they're also open to non-constituted groups. Friends of groups, registered charities and NGOs, which are non-government organisations, sports clubs, tenants and residents associations and religious groups, third level education organisations and schools, not-for-profit organisations managing community spaces. There is 1 application permitted per group, although applicants can be named as partners on multiple applications, and we very much welcome applications between 2 or more of the above categories. So to be eligible, projects must be located on a free to access public open space. The site must be accessible and inclusive to everyone. The project needs to be located in a rural area with a population of fewer than 5,000 inhabitants. All permissions, consents, legal requirements and insurance must be in place before the project commences. Schools are required to provide documentary evidence from the Board of Trustees that the land can be used for this purpose for a minimum of 5 years from the date of the letter of offer. So what support is available to you as an applicant? Well, grants available are £3,000 to £12,000 at 95% of costs. There is an upfront payment available by agreement in your letter of offer, and this is where needed and on a case-to-case basis. There is online support with your application and project design. There are site visits from Live Here, Love Here staff, and online and in-person support from our Biodiversity Recovery Strategic Lead. So what are we looking for? We're looking for projects that have positive environmental impacts. We're looking for sustainability, improved access to community green spaces. We're looking for timely proposals. The grants are now open and they need to be completed by the middle of March. So we're looking for projects that can be completed within this time. We're looking for collaboration between different partners. We're looking for community engagement, biodiversity sensitivity, creativity. We want to see a long-term impact on the space that you're improving, and we want to see that there's evidence of need for the project. So I'm going to hand you over to my colleague Nicola, who's going to take you through the next part of the presentation.
Thanks, Helen. So why should you apply to the Rural Community Pollinator Grants? So this is an opportunity to create more habitats for pollinators. The online application process is easy to follow. You will get great support from the Live Here, Love Here staff, and there will be a dedicated grants officer to assist with your claim. You'll get the opportunity to showcase your project through a site visit or a case study, and the grant claim process is straightforward. So here are some Rural Community Pollinator Garden grant ideas. So we would love to see the creation or refurbishment of existing community gardens, planting an orchard with accessible paths, native trees or hedge planting, the creation of outdoor learning spaces in schools. We'd like to see planting wildflowers and pollinator-friendly plants. This is an opportunity to equip a community garden with tools, seeds, and shrubs for spring. You could upgrade access to improve accessibility to community green spaces. And you could even think about adding a green roof on community buildings and other assets. While we can fund, and we are looking forward to funding a wonderful range of project ideas, we cannot fund everything. So please do be aware of this list. Professional fees are more than 10% of an awarded grant. So we can include some professional fees, but that must be no more than 10% of your actual awarded grant. We cannot fund project delivery running costs, such as salaries, insurance, mileage, office overheads. We cannot fund machinery such as lawnmowers, strimmers, or fuel. We can, however, fund small hand tools and items that you may need as part of your project. We can't fund non-environmental interests such as party political activities, promotion of religion. We cannot fund costs for events such as holiday schemes, catering, volunteer expenses, or parties. We cannot fund murals. However, small quantities of paint to cover graffiti, etc. may be considered. We cannot fund herbicide for ground preparation or pesticides. And we cannot fund hanging basket projects. If you do have any questions regarding any of these items, you can discuss it with a grants officer as you work through your application. So we've produced, Jilly, our Biodiversity Recovery Strategic Lead, has produced some fabulous documents to help you get started and to help you think of some project ideas. So on our website, we have a document that will actually outline some different projects. It will actually give some suggested costings and it is based on the different needs that different groups and different applicants may have. And it's actually also based on the size of your site. So they're fabulous resources. These are online and available for you to download. We also have on the Live Here, Love Here website, on the pollinator page to the left, there is a button, and it is a suggested suppliers list. These are not prescriptive. We do welcome you to shop around and to shop local. However, these are just some recommendations of providers that we know are experts in their field. So I'm going to talk through the application process, and if you do have any questions, please feel free to pop them into the Q&A function or the chat function. So you can find the information about the grant on the liveherelovehere.org/pollinator grants page. Here you'll see some basic information, as well as an opportunity to download the guidance documents. We very strongly recommend that you download the guidance documents before you begin an application. There's also an opportunity to scroll down this page and to access the project ideas document that Jilly has produced. On the web page, we have also created an eligibility checker. As Helen explained, this grant is for rural communities, and rural communities have been defined as an area with a population of fewer than 5,000 inhabitants. We've created a place where you can type in the postcode of your project location into this area, and you can see if it is eligible for your application to continue. You may live in a town, but your project may be located in a more rural area. So we would strongly advise making sure that you enter the postcode of the project location. So whenever you want to begin your project, you would click onto the button for the relevant way that you want to access your grants. You may have already created a Live Here, Love Here profile. You may have previously applied to some of our grant schemes or some of our volunteering opportunities. And if you have, you will then log in using those details. If you need to create a new profile, you would just then need to register your details. There is a section where you can reset your password if you have forgotten it. So if on the first instance, if you forget your password, please use that function. And if that does not work, then please get in touch with one of the team. So whenever you log in, you will be brought to your profile. And whenever you get to that page, you will see a link for pollinator grant applications. Please click this link and it will bring you in to where you can begin your application. So you will need to enter a project name, and then whenever you begin your application, then you will need to start adding in your applicant's details. So this is the basic information. We ask that whoever does submit this content, that you please do put in an email address that you will be contactable on, and a phone number that is a working phone number. So then if we do need to get in touch with you, that all the details are correct. So whenever you work through, you will see that you need to enter your project location. We have built in the eligibility checker on a few different spots of the application, and it's just to make sure that people are meeting the criteria before they do spend the time to complete their application. So you will need to enter in your postcode, and I put mine in, and it does show a message that this does not seem to be in a rural community with fewer than 5,000. So that's where I would then maybe choose not to submit an application. However, if you do put in your eligible one, it will say that you're eligible to proceed and you can proceed with your application. We also ask that do you have permission from the landowner or the land manager? this is where you can tell us that you do. And the onus is on the group to ensure that you have the correct permissions in place before you begin your project. And we would recommend that you do contact your landowners or your land managers ahead of your application, just so then if there are any permissions do need to be sought, that you can work on this as you work through your application. We also, again, build in a section for you to tick to confirm whether you have read the guidance notes. And again, we strongly encourage you to read through the guidance notes thoroughly and to ensure that you're ticking all the boxes whenever you're submitting your application. So then this is where we want to see about your project. Again, you enter in your project title, and then we want you to actually click on the map where your project is going to be located. This will then help the judges see where the project is and gives us access to know a little bit more about your project. So then we want to see the general information, such as your project description, what is the overall goal of your project, and what evidence have you collected to demonstrate the need for your project, and also how will the community benefit from it. Then we go into how does your project meet the objectives of the grant. So again, please remember, this is where you need to outline how it meets at least 3 of the objectives that we discussed. There is also a link to the guidance notes, again, an opportunity for you to download those guidance notes and to ensure that your application is definitely meeting the objectives. Then we want to see how your community groups and partners will be involved in the project and the delivery. And again, this is a way for you to engage with your community and for your community to deliver positive change within your local areas. So we then move on to the section 3, project costs. And this is where you will detail all the items that you wish to purchase through the grant. We will then ask that you put in the costs of the items and then the amount that you're requesting from the grant scheme. So you'll need to add in the full cost of the items you wish to purchase and then the amount that you'll be requesting for the grant scheme. The system will auto-calculate the amount and the percentage of funding requested from the grant scheme. And please remember that the funding requested must be 95% of the project's total cost. And then the group would then need to give us a little bit of information that you do have the additional 5% match funding available. At this section, we would want to highlight that match funding must be secured for the 5% of costs of the items purchased. Volunteer time or in-kind support cannot be included. So we also want to know what contribution, if anything, your group is making towards your project, whether that's any additional funding, any volunteer time, or anything else. Perhaps you're using a local person who has access to a digger who's going to help out, and that's going to be their contribution to the project. All these things are really beneficial for groups. And then if the amount requested, if the full amount requested is not awarded, is your project scalable? So we want to know if the project can be scaled depending on the level of funding offered. Okay, then we've moved towards the end of the application form, and this section 4 is just our general terms and conditions. We do want to know where you heard about the Community Pollinator Grants, so that's where you can type in where you heard about it. And then there's some consenting tick boxes. And then when the form is 100% completed, the link below will appear to show you that you can submit your application. This will only appear whenever the grant has, or the application has been fully completed. So if it is sitting at 96%, or 98%, please scroll back up through your application and just check which section or any elements that you have missed out. And please make sure that all the relevant boxes have information in them. So then when your grant is sitting at 100%, then we need you to click here to submit your application. Some people do tend to think that because it's 100%, that is it submitted, but no, we need you to click the button to make sure that you've submitted your application. You will then receive an automated email confirming your application, and just make sure to check your junk box, as sometimes the documents go in there. As you're working through your application, you don't need to do it all in one sitting. There is little save and close buttons as you work down through the application, so you can save it, and then it means that you can then go back to it at a different time. Maybe whenever you've got some questions answered, you can dip back in. There is also an option on your profile for you to download your application as a PDF document. And then that PDF document, some groups find it useful maybe to email it around to other group members to see if they're happy with the content that you've already put in, and gets an opportunity for groups to collaborate with the application process. Okay, so we'll just review some important dates. So the grant scheme launched on the 16th of September. The closing date is 12 noon on the 11th of October. We aim to have the letter of offer issued to groups by the 22nd of October, and the project completion and the financial claims must be submitted by the 14th of March 2022. So that brings us to the end of our information session. So thank you very much for listening. But now, if you do have any questions, please use the Q&A function, or if you want to ask your question live to any of us, please use the little raise your hand function on the Zoom. And if you need, you can contact us at pollinatorgrants@liveherelovehere.org.